The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System is Down.
Oh, hello there. What's up, Downers? Today's episode is the continuation of our 5-man group chat about 9/11. The first half of this conversation was back in episode 7, so if you haven't checked that out yet, I would highly recommend it. Otherwise, this episode might be a bit confusing. I'll post a link to that in the show notes at TSIDpod, so in case you're here listening out of order, I'm going to warn you, you should probably turn back now, because at this point in the chat, it was much later, and a few drinks further into the night, so things got a little bit even more disjointed than before. And, you know, I wouldn't want you to hear any spoilers or anything. Now, I won't bore you with my typical introductory bloviation because I'll assume you've already listened to episode 7 by now, and you already know what's going on here. So, without further ado, let's get weird.
Previously on Fuck It, let's talk about 9/11.
Kick it off.
Picture this. The universe is a dark and void place. And then
You're going to say that the world
Big
was formed in
Bang.
1979?
I'm going to take it back
and I think
even
that would
further, actually.
Dear God, let's get to 9/11 at some point.
Let's take it back even further.
And my brain doesn't retain anything other than the basics of thermite and what I write down and that type of thing.
You've just got a notepad and you've got thermite and question mark and it's circled like 3 times.
Thermite!
There was nearby even like gas station footage that had captured.
Why, though?
Why do we need the gas station to release their footage?
Yeah, and we have at least 5 cameras on the outside of the building. We got to go to gas station footage.
Okay, 7-Eleven, what do you got?
I love being a conspiracist, though. Because it's like you really want to trust the government. Like, you really... Because you're like, this is America, you know? This is the land of the free, home of the brave.
Yeah.
You, like, want to trust the government, but at the same time, you're just like, you know what?
Yeah.
You guys might be up to something.
Yeah. I think everybody at some point, I mean, there might be some people who are totally like, no, the government story is 100% accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody falls, at the very least, into they had some prior knowledge.
Yeah, sure.
Which even the official government story gives you that impression.
You never know.
No Keaton still.
Oh,
Yeah,
there
you
he
can
is.
hear you.
There he is.
Cool.
I'm sorry, Keaton.
There he is.
So, yeah.
You've been gone
Keaton,
for
we've
like
been
20
ignoring
minutes.
you this whole time.
You may or may not have had something to say, but we haven't.
Apologize for not noticing that you weren't just like starting to
It's all
speak.
good.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now, though? For sure?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess I was just sitting back and listening, and especially, I just didn't want my last spiel on this cast to be me mumbling about my child. But that doesn't sound very insightful. But I like the outline that it's going so far with, because I really like having opposition. I like having, so much what normal people think as opposed to
The new normal.
Those things are. My only counter argument I've been having on and
Real
off.
quick, this is the first time Nathan has ever been referred to as normal, so let's just go ahead and acknowledge that right now.
I feel so good.
Well, at least his viewpoint thus far has been like the pop culture version of the story, and my argument with that is the inconsistencies, because there's so many inconsistencies within the whole, not just what what happened was the inconsistencies of first, why
Sorry, we're losing you, man. We're losing you,
You're going to
man.
have to take it back because all we can hear is just like super electronic sounds. All right, so take it back to the part where you said there were a lot of inconsistencies and start from there.
Okay, no problem. Inconsistencies as big as like one of my big dominant questions is why was the rubble of all 3 towers taken to China shortly after the incident? So there is no way to do another investigation.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, if you look at it like a crime scene, as soon as the fire went out, which was ridiculously long after, which is another topic. I mean, as soon as that fire went out, the thermite fire.
Nanothermite. Yeah.
Yeah, nanothermite, yep. As soon as that was out, everything was taken away. If you look at any crime scene, which this, we're told, was, that's not okay. That's not evidence. You cannot...
They shipped it to China.
Yeah, it's in China.
So,
like, the inconsistencies continue from there, too. Why what is it that Tower 7, was reported to have fallen before it fell? And you could say that it was stages, or maybe the backdrop behind her was just a recording going on in the background. I've heard every argument in the book about that, but the point is that this building was a football field away from these other towers. Now, I've personally seen towers be demolished, both in video and in person. And then I've watched videos of other planes hitting buildings, which doesn't happen very often. But there is recorded footage of planes hitting buildings, and they didn't react that way. It's just my logic dictates to me that no amount of force from a projectile of that size hitting a building that was made. First of all, the way that it fell, we can say it fell all in unison because the beams, the floors were weakened. There was fires, there was damage, but the floors below them, where there was no damage, would have withstood the weight of the building above them, crashing down a measly 10, 15, 20 feet onto the floor below them. It wouldn't have fallen that fast. It just doesn't happen that way without some kind of destruction to that level also. So why were the lower levels, why did they fall so easily? Especially when it got down to a lower level. You could say force built up at that point, but it shouldn't have been allowed to. It shouldn't have been allowed to build up to that speed. And then 7 hours later, this other building, a football field away, just fell the exact same fashion without being struck by a 757 or a 760. First of all, 757, 747, 767s hit a building. They're made out of tough stuff, but like what you said, Craig, like those wings would not have been able to. I don't know. There's too much that I can't believe.
Wake up, sheeple.
Yeah, and the inconsistencies.
It's just so easy to accept the. We keep calling it the patriotic side, and I agree that's a bad term for it. But it's like you hear stories of like Steve Buscemi when he helped out for the firefighters, and you're like, oh yeah, that's awesome, It's just so easy to accept that side from
because you want to.
Yeah, because you want to. You want to believe that the government is holy, the government's pure, it's right,
you want
it's the truth.
The reason, government to be on your side.
Yeah, and the reason I call it the patriotic side is because we'll stick a boot in your ass. It's the American way.
Yeah,
and you're like, have you forgotten? And all these songs that capitalized upon technically, in their perspective, a national tragedy. Tragedy. It's
the biggest American tragedy.
Yeah, tragedy.
Since Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, it's like writing commercial pop songs like about Pearl Harbor or D-Day.
It's almost like we needed it. No, we needed it to kind of carry us into this new century.
Yeah,
it's true. Like the whatever it was.
And when you
PVAC or PVAC or whatever.
PNAC or something. I don't know. But yeah, when you talk about conspiracy and alternative ideas of what happened, you are called unpatriotic. Yeah. So I just figured it was the most appropriate term. And
it's the least appropriate term.
Yeah, no, and I agree. Like even the like government accord of what happened leading up to this event in the days and weeks and years leading up to this is that there was knowledge on some level of a lot of interrelated facts, but because of a lot of the judicial hurdles, it'd be like coming to Brad and saying, I think something's going to happen. We should tell Dan, and you're like, it's not any of Dan's business. And so there was a lot of knowledge that could have been had.
Sure.
And so even according to the official story, there was some foreknowledge, and no real action was taken. And so I think most Americans fall under this banner of they at least knew something and didn't do anything about it. And I think it's really easy to get there. And so I think a lot of us...
It's not a big leap of faith.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are just finding ourselves... questioning the official account and not even questioning it, just saying even you say this is the way it was, and you own up to the fact that there was mismanagement of information. So yeah, it's really hard to not question it, and then you have a lot of people who fall into that sheeple category that are just like,
sure,
no, you're unpatriotic for
it's like,
questioning it.
Yeah, they will go to that extreme to kill people because they know like they're going to get Americans on their side. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just think of all the people that signed up for the military based on the fact that this happened. That under this thing, this happened against our country. I mean, I don't know if anybody else of you have, but I actually was in the military, and a big chunk of it was based on this analogy of, hey, they attacked our country. I want to help my country.
Yeah.
So
you don't need a
for
draft
me
if
to
you have
be
something
sitting
like this.
here being unpatriotic is a huge step for me, because I was in that. I was in the military for 5 years where they feed you that over and over and over again. We got to go get these people because of what they did here in our country. We got to go get these people because of the possibilities of future terrorist attacks. We got to prevent this from happening again. So just the fact that the amount of people, anybody that you probably know in this, that's peers to you that have ever been in the military, they probably joined the military because of this event.
Yeah. Well, it's like we know the military-industrial complex like fuels the American economy, and in order to keep it moving, we have to be at war. You know, we have to keep the system running. And so, I mean, why not create a new Pearl Harbor to keep us moving into the 21st century in order to keep us ahead of everyone else?
Yeah, and from a political science perspective, there's almost nothing worse a nation could do than fight a multi-front war, and that's exactly where we find ourselves. And why would we enter into a situation like this when we're so ready to turn our back to things like the Holocaust happening in Germany or any number of atrocities around the world that we're like, there's nothing going on in Darfur. Like, but now we're willing to fight a multi-front war for what reason? And I don't see a whole lot of justification. But if there is an economic benefit to war, which it's quite clear there is, it would definitely give some credence to that.
Yeah. On the topic of that, well, you brought up Hitler.
Technically, I didn't.
Speaking of Hitler,
of people, places, and things. Yeah, Hitler said, what's more believable, a small lie or a big lie?
Exactly.
A big lie, because people don't want to not believe it. Like, if you make it grand enough, the people will believe it. If 9/11 was like, I shot 2 people, and there was a conspiracy theory around it, everybody would be willing to accept the fact that that might not be true. Because the government might kill 2-3 people. For some reason, that's okay. But if the government kills a bunch of people, or if they, demolish 3 buildings and blow up another one, I'm going to say, it's a big lie. So it's easier to believe because everybody wants to believe that the government has their interest in mind. And both of our guys seem to be frozen, or they're just contemplating.
No,
the fabric
I'm
of the
here.
universe. Keaton, are you still there?
No, he's frozen.
How do you know?
He's frozen.
How do you know some powerful wizard did not cast a hex on him?
Oh, he's gone. He's gone again.
And he's teleported.
Well,
Am I moving?
Well, folks, we got there. We talked long enough, and somebody introduces
the
Hitler.
government infiltrated and took him out. Like, we're next. Lock the door.
Yeah. No, but I mean, there is that theory that you talk long enough, and somebody's going to bring up Hitler. Well, we got there.
Let's continue a little bit. Like, I was talking about, like, the war games and that type of thing. And
can we get Keaton back on?
I don't know. He left on his own.
He left on his own accord.
He's done. Too many facts.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy like kind of assigning a person to take a certain a certain perspective. Too close. Take a certain stand on fact gathering, because it really is a lot better than some of the ones we get together on, and we're like, well, I don't really know anything, but this is this and that, and we kind of tend to agree a lot. But if we're assigned a certain fact gathering mission, it kind of makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are impartial enough and love playing the devil's advocate enough that we will legitimately give it a good
effort. As easy as
it
is to take like the patriotic side, it's like just as easy to take the conspiracy.
Yeah, definitely.
Because
it's
you're
becoming less and less easy to take the
patriotic
quote unquote side.
Yeah.
I don't think the people who wrote the report even buy the report anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. The 9/11 Commission or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was one of the one of the teams.
The Holy.
Yeah.
9/11.
You know, it took 12 or 18 months for them to even decide to start investigating. And then George Bush only
allotted them $3 million to investigate into it.
Wow. Yeah, that's
we spent over $30 million investigating the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Jeez.
That's the most expensive blowjob in history.
Yeah.
Right.
It probably is. 30 million?
Good for him.
$30 million.
Yeah, good for him.
Just to investigate the Clinton scandal
Good job,
with
Bill.
Monica Lewinsky. And George Bush allots $3 million to investigate 9/11, which eventually was bumped up to 15, but that took an incredible amount of push from actually family members of people in the towers were the ones that had to push for
Which
it.
is still only half a BJ.
Yeah, only half.
All right, I'm going to cut you off and try and get Keaton back in here.
All right.
Well, Keaton has decided to sign himself out of this conversation.
We've lost Keaton twice.
He is no longer.
Dude, Nathan, you won. The
Yes,
facts
I
took
won.
over.
I'm going to give it one more
prevail.
shot. Keaton has apparently bailed on this.
Yeah.
Keaton is no longer.
All right, yeah. So Keaton...
He's dead to me.
He had a bedtime. I do too, but
R.I.P.
I don't want to bail too early. It makes it seem like I just
Oh,
spout my
I'm a
facts
late
and
nighter.
leave.
I'll be up till 2 or 3 a.m. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Man. I watch Joe Rogan all the time, all these podcasts. Man.
Yeah.
We just
Joe
go
Rogan's
down
a
the rabbit
shill.
hole. Oh, yeah.
Joe Rogan's a shill.
Oh, come on.
He's the gatekeeper. He's a gatekeeper.
I'm deeper than you are.
I'm deeper than you are, yeah.
I got to go home and write my D&D campaign. I'm not lying.
You really play D&D?
Yeah.
Nathan, if you need to leave, we'll just ramble on in
we're
our
good.
craziness.
We're good. Something that I would like to say is just, it seems like there's a larger picture here, and it's like the Christian West versus the Muslim East.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it seems like there's always been this struggle, like going back to the Crusades.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like there's always been this dichotomy of Christian versus Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
And it's played out in 9/11. It keeps going forward with ISIS and, you know, Islam and Syria and all this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, ironically, it really... I mean...
Don't give us facts. We don't care.
Sorry, I forgot. I'm not supposed to talk anymore. I'll leave.
Well, what I think it could be, if you want to... I mean, there's multiple sides to conspiracy theories. Some people take the Zionist Jew approach, that it's the Zionist Jews' conspiracy to take over the world, and Muslims and Hebrews, Muslims and Jews, they've always fought together. So if you want to take that approach, then yes, there always has been dichotomy between the Jewish culture and the Muslim culture. And then if you bring that over into the United States, how they think, well, it's proven, I guess, it's a fact that the big banks are ran predominantly by Jewish people.
Sure.
Hollywood's ran predominantly by Jewish people.
Yeah.
So
All the
that
media.
ties into American culture. And so American culture now predominantly has a dichotomy with Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not going to...
If you want to go that side. I'm not going that side because I haven't gotten deep enough into it, and that's a touchy subject because that borderlines
And
anti-Semitism.
you're bringing on the most Jewy person you know.
I'm not going to sit here and listen to you spout your anti-Semitism, you piece of shit.
I mean, you put your hand over the Bible in the courtroom. You literally put your hand over the Bible and you say, you know, so help me God.
Yeah, and the really ironic thing here is that, I mean, for one, East and West, in a technical, you know, geographic delineation don't really exist. But the really ironic thing is that Christianity is an Eastern religion, and we as Americans have basically placed it into our culture to make it an effective means of, you know, saying Western culture is better.
Yeah.
And if you
I honestly believe that. I believe culture, the Christian culture has helped the West to become what it has become.
Definitely.
You know, and I believe that.
Yeah, and so really it's not so much about Christians versus Muslims as it is against, you know, the Arabic kind of Middle Eastern culture versus the kind of the barbaric, you know, European tribes. It's really more of just a tribal mentality that's, you know, continued into today, and you just have larger tribes.
Sure.
This is so far deep off topic.
Let's get back into 9/11.
It's on topic, but it's deep within
We
the
are talking
topic.
about
That
politics
is
and
what it
religion.
is. Yeah, when you say like Muslim terror, Islam, radical Islam,
You're perpetuating it. Stop.
destroyed capitalism. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about Western capitalism. We're talking about Christian capitalism.
Yeah.
That's the heart at these conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we talk about the Pentagon?
It's a 5-sided shape. Oftentimes,
That is
the
what a pentagon is.
angles are of equal value.
120, right? Or is
yes.
it 180?
I believe it's 120.
Yes. Not 180.
Yeah.
That's a reverse angle.
I believe in a thing called love.
A reverse line segment.
360.
360 degrees supplementary.
So we talked about the three towers. We never really got
Yeah,
much into the Pentagon. The only thing we touched was the one camera deal. We never actually talked about the actual evidence against or for the Pentagon.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Take it away, Craig.
I'm more building
Well,
7.
Yeah, I thought everybody wanted to talk about World War
I think that the fact that we found minimal bodies in all of these situations.
Did anybody die in the Pentagon?
Yeah, the official report
The
lists.
guy.
Sorry, Bradley Michael asked a question.
Just because he was looking at you
go
doesn't
for
mean
it.
it was for you.
No, it actually does. Yeah, the official report does record numerous individuals who were killed and injured, many of whom were high-ranking military officials.
Well, there's
wow.
so many layers to 9/11, even 9/11 conspiracies. There's people that don't believe that planes even flew
Yeah.
into the World Trade Centers.
They're
And
holograms.
Brad is pointing at himself right now, and we'll definitely dig into that. And I would at least say that there is no evidence that there was a plane that flew into the Pentagon.
Where's the evidence?
okay,
come on.
well,
This is the biggest military.
I just
zone
have to
of the United States.
Yeah, I just have to say something. Like, if you're gonna try to do something like that, I wouldn't choose one of the most populous cities and one of the most populated boroughs in our
Again,
nation.
That's the big lie compared to the small.
True, but I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of eyewitnesses to be like, it was this or that, doctoring
sure,
the
it's
footage.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
Brad had no intention of chiming in on this conversation.
yeah, I
but
love it.
He's getting
He's
really
all
involved now
about
that
it now.
Keaton left.
Yeah,
So, one thing I saw or read about the Pentagon is the way it's built. It's, I think, 5 layers, like 5 different sections
I
inward.
don't know. You tell me, Pentagon guy.
Oh, I'm not the Pentagon guy. But yeah, it was built like basically a layer and then like a courtyard and a layer and a courtyard from what it looks like in pictures anyway. So it's just like wall. And the plane apparently went through all of those walls and just barely exited into the interior or something. But the reports from the firefighters, if a plane or a burning object crashed into a building, you'd think it would be equally hot or hotter towards the outside where there's more oxygen. But the report from the firefighters is as they got deeper in the layers, it was getting hotter and hotter as they went. And I'd like to know how that works.
Are you describing intimate encounter that you had?
What? No, yeah.
Negate it, Fax Man. Fax Man!
Strikes again. All I know is a pentagon is a 5-sided polyhedron.
Oh, dear God.
Okay, thanks.
And then
According,
Okay.
Actually, pentagon refers to a 5-sided shape that
Stop it.
It has 540 degrees in
I keep
total.
trying to pull this back to the beginning when all these war games are going on, but we keep getting sidetracked from that. The main evidence against the conspiracy theories are the incompetence theory that in all this turmoil, nobody knew what to do. Don't know what we're paying you for, but yeah, our defense radars, they say, are pointed outward so they can't detect issues within the country. However, the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration, standard operating procedures say that as soon as a plane flies off course, the FAA will contact the plane and try to get contact with them and see what's going on. And if there's a problem if they have a problem establishing radio contact, or if they don't answer, or if they hear something that sounds fishy, the FAA will immediately contact the Pentagon, who will, within a maximum of 10 minutes, scramble fighter jets to intercept the civilian plane and analyze the situation. And, I mean, there was like an hour and a half this was going on. There's 4 planes that were hijacked by, 19 guys
19.
with box cutters.
Yeah.
First of all, let's talk about that. Guys with box cutters hijacking a plane. Box cutters were allowed on planes at the time, but imagine hijacking a plane with box cutters that is supposedly a full plane. There's like 100 people on these airliners, and they're getting through to talk to the captain. You can go up to the airline security and say, hey, I want to talk to the captain, and say, hey, you're doing a good job, and you'll never get through because of the security on the airliners. But with these box cutters, they were able to plow through all of that.
Okay, so there's a couple
4 times in one day on 4 airliners.
Yeah, there's a couple parts of your thing to break down a little bit. Well, Facts Man strikes again. I mean, if you're just wanting to talk about things and have nobody...
No, I want to hear your side.
Yeah.
I want to hear
No, go.
Okay, so
aside
first
from
off, yeah.
true patriot.
Okay, so the first thing from the patriotic point of view, first off, is we have evidence that a Pentagon is a 5-sided building.
Start there.
No, okay. So, your standard operating procedures are well and good, but the terrorists disabled the tracking systems in the planes. So, no, you don't cut
Disabled
in.
what systems in the planes?
The ones that show the tracking
this is
that
pre
would
9/11, by the way. This
Yeah,
is before like
exactly.
all the security features were allowed through going through planes and going through all the metal detectors and shit. Like, this is pre 9/11.
Exactly. So there was a lot of things that were different, but
this was current 9/11.
Good point. Thank you. This was the 9/11. So reportedly they disabled the tracking guidance systems, which would
false.
Okay, well, no, you weren't there.
Well, go ahead.
So the official story is that once they disabled these things, they would appear to be just blips. I don't know. They would appear just
transponders. Yes,
they would appear to be just blips on the radar amongst hundreds of others.
Transponders only account for their elevation. They don't account for where they are. They had clear view of where they were on the map.
Yeah, but there was evidently like an automated tracking system. They also
had a couple of them that the transponders were still on. They just changed the codes and they were still fully trackable. And they asked them, "Hey, what's going on? We see where you are. What's going on? You're not going on the right path."
All right. So anyway, with a couple of these ones, apparently they would still be locatable by radar, but not trackable by the more sophisticated system, whatever that is. The
more sophisticated system.
NORAD, right? Thank you. The second part of your discussion was, the box cutters thing. Again, reportedly, they had decoy bombs, which turned out to be not bombs, but
threats.
They were threatening with explosive appearing devices, which would be more than just a box cutter.
Which that was accounted by people on the plane who were calling their
relatives,
parents, loved ones, and they were saying, "Hey, this is me," in case you didn't know, from 3,500 feet up, which cannot happen.
There's phone planes. Back then, I remember the phones on the center.
They were calling them from cell
thing.
phones, though.
Well, it was phone planes and cell phones, is what the official report
plane
says.
Phones?
Plane phones and cell phones, is what I said.
Yeah, but you can't call people from cell phones from 3,500 feet up.
Why not?
Now.
Because of how cell phone towers work. I've never tried to use a cell phone on a plane, but I just assume. I've always thought, I wonder how great a signal I had up there. I haven't proven it or disproven it because I always have my electronic disabled while I'm on a plane based on the FAA regulations. Yeah. So, but
if you were like
going back
to
your war game statement, or the fact that they had all these
finish
things.
His thought first.
I was pretty well. Well done. I just had those couple of things because again, we're trying to provide both perspectives, and just to be like, yeah, this is what happened, and therefore this and this. We also have to provide the other perspective.
Right. But the recordings that they have of those conversations were from cell phones, and they were, the conversations were fairly calm, and they were like, hey, this is Dan, and I'm not really happy about what's going on up here. There's shady stuff even in those conversations that happened from 3,500 feet up.
One of the guys said, I don't know what's going to happen. I think he's planning on crashing into a building in Chicago. That alone was sketchy to me. It's just like, how would you possibly know his intentions? He says he has a bomb. I would think his intentions would be, I'm going to blow up the plane, not I'm going to fly into a building. Mm-hmm. That was the one sketchy part about the phone conversations, I thought.
Maybe he made an announcement.
This is your
airline pilot. This is your new airline pilot, and we plan to crash into a building in the World Trade Center.
This is your captive speaking.
So, can we get back to what you were saying about the war games initially? Because we keep going back there, but we keep.
Good Lord, that'd be great.
So, you talked about the plans they had about if this happened, they report to the FAA. And then they report to the military, and then the military scrambles fighter jets, and all that happens.
Yeah.
That was the case. The case was they were supposed to be able to report directly to the military, and the military would scramble. Not long before 9/11, Colin Powell made a decision that he would be the final sayer in whether or not they scramble jets. He was the only one who had the authority to scramble jets in the incident of a hijacked plane. So he happened to be in a meeting that lasted many, many minutes after the first plane was hijacked. They could not even get a hold of him until long after this was way far into this.
Well, that's convenient.
And yeah. So, yes, we did have all these regulations in play, but right at the last minute, it seems that Colin Powell changed those. And I'm pretty sure it was Colin Powell. I hope it was, because then I'm going to look really stupid when somebody types in and is like, it wasn't Colin Powell, it was Dick Cheney or somebody else shady. But
the facts really don't matter.
Yeah. So
no, they don't. It doesn't matter who it was. Somebody who's really high up made the decision, hey, I'm going to make the final decision in this. When one person is one person, clearly he's a busy man. He was in even if he was legitimately in a meeting that lasted even 15 minutes after that initial hijacking, you failed to do your job, and somebody else should have been able to make that call in an event that you were in a meeting.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like that's a really, I mean, you're a leader of a world government, and that's a really bad way of doing, sole proprietorship business, like you should have somebody who can answer to these kinds of requests when you're unreachable. I mean, perhaps you didn't plan to have a major terror attack when you're in a meeting, but there should be a fallback.
Yeah. So,
but I guess
that alone,
what I'm saying is, I mean, that proves that it wasn't an inside job, because, he just wasn't around to take the call. So.
He happened to be in a meeting discussing what would happen in an event that hijacked planes crash into a building.
Exactly.
Probably.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
No. That sucks.
Well, that's depressing.
Well, we've touched on the surface. The very, very surface. Like I said, this is going to be a multiple episode deal, and we're going to get into this much, much more in the future. I'm sure Craig and Brad and I will stick around and chat about it a little bit more after Nathan leaves, because he has to work in the morning like a real man.
And we don't want to hear his facts anymore.
Get your facts out of here.
Yeah. No, I appreciate, Nathan, you coming on and giving us our spankings. Our conspiratorial spankings.
FAX.
Somebody's got to hold to the truth around here.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, who's the real truther? Is it you, Nathan, or is it us?
I don't know.
And that's the thing. We could talk for hours on the facts and negations of the facts, or we could talk for hours on the conspiracies and negation of the theories. So, yeah, there's just so much, and we've barely even touched on it, but I wanted to get into this now, because it seems like everybody who gets into conspiracies at all their story starts with 9/11 because that is our current Pearl Harbor. It's our current main tragedy that's happened, and it's something that we don't take lightly, even though we joke about it.
That's why we're in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still going on. Like, the
Still,
effects of it are
15 years
still
later.
impacting us. But I don't want to cheapen anybody's tragedy or, like, make light on people who have lost loved ones, for sure. But these things need to be looked into, and they need to be talked about, for sure. So thank you guys for coming on. Nathan, thanks for bringing the true story, the patriotic story to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's my patriotic duty.
Craig, thanks for all the facts that you've given. Keaton, thanks for all your glorious input.
Keaton abstains
R.I.P.
courteously.
And Brad Moran, I'm glad to have you on, and I'm sure we'll have you again now that you're
please. I love
into the depths of our...
Whatever this is, I love it.
Absolutely.
Whatever you call this, like this little amalgamation of minds, I love it.
And whatever we talk about after Nathan leaves might be episode 2. Stay tuned. Thanks.
The system is down.
Just kidding. That was obviously supposed to be the end, but we were having too much fun to stop. So we kept the tape rolling as Nathan wrapped up and headed off to bed. Then Craig, Brad, and I continued with a few more unfiltered thoughts without Fax Man there to rein us in. So while I was editing the episode, I decided there's enough interesting little nuggets in there that I'd just go ahead and include some of it into the show. Maybe in the future, we'll have Nathan back on to refute some of it, but until then, let's get weirder.
No, I would just say, with
I don't care about what you have to say.
with respect to, like you said, people who may have lost people in it, wouldn't you be all the more, I mean, even though it might be a difficult topic for you, wouldn't be all the more interested in if there's a question, and finding out what the true answer would
You're
be.
quoting me.
I just want to be a sheeple. I want to accept the patriotic side. I want to just go with the status quo. I want to fall in line.
Yes.
But at the same time, there's
I
that
did
little
for
brain,
13 years.
Well, that's what people don't get. They think that conspiracists or conspiracy theorists or conspiracy advocates, anybody, conspiratards, yes, they think that we're just looking for the bad and everything. But me personally, if I want somebody to disprove me, I do.
Please.
Nathan, I mean, you've done your best, but
I would do better on one that I might actually, agree with. But
what do you mean?
I
like one that you disagree with me on heavily.
Right? Yeah, one that I might actually be more interested in, defending a
Not
point.
just playing devil's advocate, but giving your emotional and factual standpoint on.
Yeah, if you were wanting to talk about flat Earth, for instance.
Oh, it's coming.
Next episode.
Oh,
It's
man.
not next episode.
Let's go
That
right
one's-
now. Right now.
No.
So
Nope.
sure.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
hate
most
that they
picked up.
use as an insult, they use the term truthers. That's an insult. Oh, these people just want to find the truth. Oh, these terrible people that want to find the truth.
Yeah, any label,
These stupid
no matter what
truthers.
you put on it, will eventually get a bad
Pejorative.
rap.
Yeah.
It's just dumb, though. It's why wouldn't we want to find the
Yeah.
truth? Why should that be an insult?
Yeah,
I
it's a
could
bad
see,
thing.
conspiracy theorists. But truthers, really? That's what you have to throw at us?
Yeah.
It's these stupid truthers.
Yeah.
How dare them want to know the truth?
Exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you're talking abortion, pro-life or pro-choice, they're both good things, but the people who oppose them see pro-choice as a bad thing, even though pro-choice is a good thing by definition, and pro-life is a good thing by definition, but because you disagree with them, it's turned into a negative.
Anti-life, anti-abortion.
Yeah.
So-
It's all divisive.
Satanists.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, Nathan.
What?
See ya, and we'll talk about the real stuff here.
All right.
All right, let's
It's
talk about
tobacco.
9/11.
Anyway, to go back to Nathan, all the facts that he kept bringing up about the towers and stuff, that were proven that it fell because of this, and this. No, those weren't proven. Those were computer simulated, and the way they computer simulated them was by manipulating the simulation to do exactly what they wanted it to see. Because they couldn't get even the simulation to simulate what they were trying to do. So what they would do is like disconnect girders, like take bolts out of the girders and heat up or not heat up certain spots to make it do exactly what they wanted to. So all the proof that they give is just the simulation that was actually a fraud.
So I'm going to chime in here to make a point that I made on the last podcast that you and I recorded that will probably not be released because it needs to be worked in somewhere. This entire show is only to document Craig's breakdown into mental instability, and the final episode will be broadcast from his padded cell.
As I am tying the bed sheet around my neck and hanging myself.
Yes.
I get further and further the more episodes we record, is what you're trying to point out.
Yep.
I mean, as much as I don't want to believe it, it's like a part of me just wants to believe that ignorance is bliss. I just want to sit there and just take
it is. It's way
it's,
better.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's just a simple life. But it's like there's money to be made in any of these things. Going into war in Iraq and
that
Afghanistan.
Is something
there's
that I
money
wanted to point out.
Made.
That's something that I wanted to point out, but we didn't get there. It's like somebody made money off this.
Yeah.
Money is
the way it works,
a driving factor for sure.
The way it's worked for at least 100 years. At least 100 years. We'll go back to World War I.
Sure. Go back even further.
No, what I'm saying is American people made money off World War II. That lasted, 10 years? I don't even know how long that one lasted. But then they throw us into Vietnam, which was specifically designed to not be won. Because basically the rules of engagement, that's what our rules of engagement were pretty much, we cannot fight them past a certain line. So what they would do is come attack us, flee back to across that line so we couldn't do it. The war was not meant to be won, so that's why it was drug out years and years and years.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now we're fighting an enemy that has no boundaries. Mm-hmm. So now we've started an unendable war because we are now fighting, instead of we're fighting Vietnamese, we are fighting terror. Yeah, we're not even fighting terrorists. Yeah. We're fighting terror itself. Sure. So this war was not meant
war on
to
drugs.
Even be completed.
Yeah. Well, think about the superpowers that came out of World War II. Like you've got Japan, Germany, the Allies. And we came out on top because of the military-industrial complex and how we used kind of the military to fuel our economy and push us forward into the 20th century and now into the 21st century. Now we need a new enemy. And that enemy is terror.
We need a boogeyman.
Global terror. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at World War II, the bankers succeeded. They were funding both sides of the war. What's his name? Prescott Bush's bank was written up on.
Keep all this in mind because we need to have this on an actual podcast. And I don't know if this is actually going to be one, but continue. Maybe it will be.
Prescott Bush's bank that he was co-partnered with was funding the Nazi side, and the American government shut down his bank on trading with the enemy. The planes that the Germans flew were the fuel was conditioned by like an oil conditioner that was patented from what's the big oil? Standard Oil, which was an American company. They were the only ones that made that oil. If they didn't provide that conditioner, the German planes would have never taken off the ground.
Yeah. Sure.
So people were making millions. Back then, millions are probably trillions today. People were making millions from both sides of the war. And they were American elite business people. And so it's asinine to think that they're not doing the same thing right now with 9/11. We know for a fact that we provided the weapons to them back in the 80s. We know for a fact that we sold the weapons through Israel or through other chains, so there's no paper trail leading to the Americans, but it's come out. It's not even a conspiracy thing. It's come out in mainstream news. Hey, we gave them these weapons they're shooting us with now. We probably didn't give them to them. I'm sure we sold them to them for lots of money.
Well, it's like we're funding both sides of the Syrian war, too. It's like we're funding, certain rebels to fight the Russians. It's like these proxy wars have been going on since, America's been founded.
Yeah.
and we're just using it to make money. And it's kind of brilliant. I don't blame them. Like, print the dollar bill. Make the money, keep the world moving.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't help that Dwight Eisenhower warned against the military complex before he left office. He was a military, like a decorated military general. You'd think he'd be supporting the military and all the stuff we do. His last statement was, "Hey, watch out for the industrial military complex because they're pretty much going to destroy the nation." And mic drop, left his presidency right there. So if he's willing to warn against it, you would think we should all realize, hey, this is happening.
Well, it's not like you can remove it because, like, where we live, we're close to the arsenal, and that kind of fuels a lot of American jobs, and they fuel, a lot of the products that go into Afghanistan and Iraq and all that stuff.
So we should have personally been more afraid at the time.
Sure, yeah. I mean, they always talk.
I remember being worried about that. I remember thinking, or people saying, hey, we are right next to the arsenal.
Yeah.
We are a direct target, being where we are. In Cedar Rapids, where I live right now, we have 5 major like food plants. Like this is the center of General Mills and Quaker Oats and a bunch of others. 5 major plants here that could, if got knocked out, a good chunk of the economy, like as far as food and stuff like that, produce would be knocked out. And then we are several miles from a nuke plant.
And that's what keeps people like as sheeple. It's like we want to protect these jobs so much. It's like, well, we need to kind of be in this state of unrest. We need to be in this state of war because you realize, like, oh, people depend on the production of these guns and these missiles and these tanks and things because it keeps the whole, like, American economy moving. It keeps us moving forward in the 21st century, and it keeps us moving, ahead of Europe, ahead of Asia.
They took our jobs.
Yeah, exactly. They took our jobs. It's all built up in that. It's like...
It's everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It all goes into the same pot. Like, we can talk about specifics. You can't even talk about specifics without talking about all these other things first. Like, I have notes and notes of the first 20 minutes of the 5-hour documentary that I talked about earlier.
Well, that's what I was saying. The 2 days leading up, we could do an entire episode just on the 2 or 3 days, week leading up to 9/11. Not even talking about 9/11. We could have an entire episode. But back to people making money off of stuff, like, even if they were just jumping on it and benefiting from a tragedy, look at the guy who owned World Trade Center 7. He had just bought the building months prior and took out a huge claim, insurance claim, or not insurance claim. He had an insurance policy on this, like bumping up terror and stuff like that on his insurance. So that guy made millions just on the fact that that building fell down.
And claiming...
And so just the fact that he capitalized on this, made millions of dollars on it, that's just... I don't know, that's crazy.
Yeah, and claiming 2, if not 3, separate terrorist attacks between the 2 buildings. He could have claimed 1 settlement for the terrorist attack, but he decided to argue against 2, if not 3, terrorist attacks, just for that extra settlement bonus.
And Nathan, I know he wasn't seriously taking the side, but he's talking about the buildings and how they could have fallen, and if it did work. Coincidence, yes. Maybe coincidentally one building... Like, what are the odds of one building falling like that? I could possibly see one building. The odds of all 3 buildings falling exactly the same manner.
2 planes.
3 with 2 planes, yes. You could defend all you want the structural deficiencies of Building 7. You could defend all you want the structural problems with a plane hitting one, but for all 3 of them to do the exact same thing, like mirror images of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not possible. And there's the odds go from like 1% to 0%, just like that.
And I try not to laugh because I know that lives were lost. Like, I know this is a serious thing, but at the core of it, it's like, it just seems so, like,
absurd.
That like especially Building 7. You look at Building 7 and you're like, it fell just like a demolition. You're like, how is this even possible? And then people just turn a blind eye to it. Like, I mean, there's footage of it falling, and it looks just like a demolition. And you're like,
you just
have to accept it because that's what the government tells you. You just have to accept it.
Oh, we forgot about the insurance company. We never mentioned the insurance company.
Yeah.
There's an insurance company owned by, what was that guy's name?
I don't know.
Walter Bush, I think.
He was. I was about to say.
He's a Bush.
Was
Yes.
his last name Bush?
No, he wasn't owned. I guess it was. He was a chairman of the board of an insurance company a security company. I'm sorry, a security company that was responsible for the security of the World Trade Center, the Dulles Airport, and United Airlines.
Yep. Yeah,
that's
the Bush that you never hear of. George W. Bush's
the smarter
brother.
Bush that stays in the smarter Bush that stays in the shadows.
Yes.
That doesn't have to publicly come out and hold books upside down in front of little children.
Because he doesn't feel like running for political office.
I didn't know about the upside down book. I'm pretty excited to go look at that.
That's news to me.
I never heard about that either.
Yeah. The upside down book, that's incredible.
If that is true, then that
just jumps
a giant red flag for me.
Years forward.
Well, that's one thing. Him reading that and getting the news and then his reaction to it, I always thought was like, oh, maybe it was an inside job, but maybe he didn't have any foreknowledge of it because he seems generally concerned about it at the time. But
he seems to not have foreknowledge about much.
Dude, you want to hate W. Like, you just want to hate George W., but then, like...
I like to give the poor, beaten child the benefit of the doubt because he's been whipped.
But you can't get fooled again.
Fool me once.
Yeah, fool me once.
Shame on me. Fool me twice. You know the saying.
You can't fool the fooler. You can't fool the fool.
Can't fool the fool. Hey guys, thanks for listening. I'm certain this is far from the end of our 9/11 discussion. If you enjoyed it and want us to dig deeper, then just let us know. And there's a couple ways you can do that. The first being by heading over to iTunes and subscribing and leaving a happy review to the show on there. But we also have a group forum where we chat about all of these things and take requests on what you guys want to hear in the show. That forum can be found with a simple search on Facebook for The System Is Down Forum or through our website at tsidpod.com/forum. Of course, it's also always greatly appreciated and very helpful to get new likes and follows on Facebook at /The System Is Down and on Twitter at tsidpod. So, do me a solid and add all of that to your to-do list. Get it done, and I'll be back to talk to you again first thing next week. Until then, question everything and stay uncomfortable. Thanks. This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.